most people never notice when it happens. One day, you wake up and realize you don't belong anymore. The conversations feel shallow. The jokes don't land. The values everyone defends feel strangely hollow. And the most unsettling part, everyone else seems perfectly comfortable. They adapt, they blend in, they call it being mature. But deep down, something in you refuses. According to Søren Kierkegaard, this moment is not a crisis. It's a revelation. Because Kierkegaard believed something most people spend their entire lives running from. The individual who fits in perfectly has already lost himself. Society praises those who adjust without resistance, who copy opinions, who inherit beliefs, who live pre-approved lives. But Kierkegaard warned that the crowd is not wisdom. It's anesthesia. It dulls your responsibility to think. It numbs your fear of being wrong. And most dangerously, it gives you the comforting illusion that if everyone agrees, it must be right. That's why fitting in feels safe, and why it slowly kills something essential inside you. You see, Kierkegaard didn't believe despair always looks like sadness. Sometimes, despair looks like a normal life, a stable routine, a familiar group, a personality shaped by expectations instead of conviction. He called this the despair of the unexamined self, the kind of despair that never screams, because it never realizes it's trapped. That's why the moment you start feeling out of place, anxious, or quietly detached, you're not failing, you're separating. The crowd begins to feel heavy because it demands something from you, your uniqueness, your doubt, your inner voice. And the price of belonging is silence. Silence about what you really think. Silence about what you really want. Silence about the life you secretly know you're not living. This is why society subtly punishes those who don't fit in, not with violence, but with labels. Difficult, arrogant, lost, too serious. Because someone who refuses to dissolve into the crowd becomes a mirror, and most people don't want to see themselves. Kierkegaard believed that becoming an individual is not comforting, it's terrifying. It means standing alone with your choices, your failures, your responsibility. No group to hide behind, no consensus to blame. And that's exactly why so few dare to do it. So if you feel like you don't fit in anymore, good. It means the illusion is cracking. But what happens next is where most people retreat, back into comfort, back into conformity, back into the crowd. Because walking forward requires something rare: courage. The crowd doesn't overpower you with force. It seduces you. It whispers, relax. You don't need to carry this alone. It promises comfort, belonging, and relief from responsibility, and that's exactly why it works. Søren Kierkegaard understood something deeply uncomfortable. The crowd feels powerful, not because it's right, but because it removes the burden of choice. When you think alone, every decision is yours. Every mistake belongs to you. Every failure has your name on it. But inside the crowd, responsibility dissolves. If everyone believes it, you don't have to question it. If everyone does it, you don't have to justify it. If everyone wants it, you don't have to ask why. This is why intelligent people fall into conformity faster than anyone else. They don't lack awareness. They lack endurance. Because awareness isolates you. Once you see the emptiness behind borrowed opinions and inherited lives, you face a brutal choice. Stand alone or numb yourself back into belonging. And most choose numbness. Kierkegaard called this the escape from selfhood. Not because people are stupid, but because being a self is heavy. To be an individual means accepting uncertainty, contradiction, loneliness, the possibility that you might be wrong with no crowd to correct the fall. So the crowd offers an easier deal. Trade depth for comfort. Trade truth for approval. Trade freedom for safety. And the exchange happens quietly. You soften your opinions. You laugh at things that don't move you. You stay silent when something feels false, not because you agree, but because resistance is exhausting. This is why the crowd hates silence. Silence gives you time to think, and thought threatens the illusion. That's why modern life is loud. Endless opinions, Endless trends, endless outrage. Noise keeps you from asking the one question Kierkegaard believed most people avoid their entire lives. Am I living as myself, or as a copy? The crowd doesn't need to attack you. It just needs to keep you distracted long enough for you to forget who you were becoming. And once you forget, you begin to defend the very system that erased you. You call conformity realism. You call compromise growth. You call self-betrayal maturity. But deep down, something keeps resisting. A tension, a quiet unease, a sense that you're performing a role you never agreed to audition for. That unease isn't weakness, it's memory. A reminder that you were meant to live deliberately, not automatically. But here's the danger. The longer you stay in the crowd, the harder it becomes to leave, because comfort rewires your tolerance for truth. There is a form of despair that doesn't look like pain. It looks like success, a stable routine, social acceptance, a life that appears normal from the outside. And that's why it's the most dangerous kind. Søren Kierkegaard warned that the deepest despair is not knowing you are in despair at all. Because when suffering is visible, it can be confronted. But when despair is disguised as comfort, it becomes permanent. This is what happens when you stay in the crowd too long. At first, you silence yourself to survive. Then you forget there was ever something to silence. Your thoughts become predictable, your reactions automatic, your desires borrowed. Not because you're weak, but because repetition dulls awareness. Kierkegaard called this living aesthetically. Drifting from pleasure to pleasure, approval to approval, never committing to anything that would force you to stand alone. And the crowd rewards this behavior generously. You're praised for being agreeable, for being easy to work with, for not asking uncomfortable questions. But inside, something corrodes. You begin to feel restless for no clear reason, irritated without a cause, exhausted even when life seems fine. That's despair speaking, quietly, not screaming for change, but whispering that something essential is missing. This is why so many people fear stillness. Silence removes the distractions, and when the noise fades, the self you avoided begins to surface. That's also why people become defensive when you choose a different path. Your refusal to blend in forces them to feel what they've been suppressing, and that creates resentment. They won't say, "You scare me." They'll say, "You're unrealistic. You think you're better than everyone else. You'll regret this." But what they really mean is, "Your courage exposes my compromise." Here's the uncomfortable truth Kierkegaard insisted on. You cannot save your individuality without losing something. You will lose ease. You will lose approval. You may even lose people you once felt close to, and that's where most turn back. Because society teaches you to fear loneliness more than self-betrayal. So people choose the familiar discomfort of conformity over the unknown weight of becoming themselves. But despair doesn't disappear when you choose comfort. It waits. It shows up later as bitterness, as quiet anger, as a sense that life passed without ever truly beginning. That's why the question isn't whether you'll suffer. It's how. The suffering of standing alone, or the slower, deeper suffering of never standing at all. There comes a moment when escape is no longer possible, not because the crowd pushes you out, but because staying begins to feel like slow suffocation. This is the moment Søren Kierkegaard believed separates those who exist from those who merely function. He said becoming yourself is not a smooth transition. It's a break, a rupture between who you've been performing as and who you can no longer pretend not to be. This is why choosing yourself feels wrong at first, not immoral, but unnatural. You feel guilty for disappointing people, uneasy for stepping out of line, anxious because there is no longer a script to follow. The crowd gives you instructions. Individuality gives you silence. And silence is terrifying, because now there's no one to blame. If you fail, it's yours. If you succeed, it's yours. If you waste your life, there will be no excuse strong enough to hide behind. Kierkegaard called this moment the dizziness of freedom, the realization that your life is not determined by systems, trends, or expectations, but by your choices. And freedom, when it's real, doesn't feel empowering. It feels heavy. That's why most people run back to roles. Roles are safe. Roles are predictable. Roles protect you from asking, what do I actually want? But the cost of living as a role is permanent incompleteness. You achieve things that don't satisfy you. You gain approval that doesn't nourish you. You build a life that looks solid, but feels hollow. Choosing yourself means stepping into uncertainty on purpose. It means acting without guarantees, thinking without permission, living without applause. Kierkegaard believed this was the beginning of an ethical life. Not moral perfection, but inner honesty. No more hiding behind irony. No more half-commitments. No more pretending not to care while slowly decaying inside. This is also where many misunderstand him. Choosing yourself does not mean becoming loud, rebellious, or superior. It means becoming responsible. Responsible for your thoughts, your values, your direction. You stop outsourcing meaning to society. You stop waiting for consensus to tell you what matters. And that's when loneliness intensifies. Not because you're isolated, but because you're no longer diluted. You feel more deeply. You notice contradictions. You see how shallow most conversations are. This isn't arrogance, it's clarity. And clarity is dangerous in a world built on distraction. That's why this phase often feels like loss. You lose friends who only knew your mask. You lose habits that kept you numb. You lose futures that were never truly yours. But something else begins to form, a quiet alignment, a sense of direction without external validation, a growing ability to stand still without needing to be entertained or approved. Kierkegaard believed this stage prepares you for the hardest step of all. Not rebellion against the crowd, but commitment to something deeper than comfort. Because individuality alone is not the end. It's the doorway. After the break, after the loneliness, after the silence, something unexpected happens. Life stops feeling vague, not easier, clearer. Søren Kierkegaard believed that most people never reach this point, not because it's impossible, but because it demands something modern life actively trains you to avoid: commitment without certainty. This is the final stage he spoke about. Not fitting in, not rebellion, not endless self-analysis, but choosing a direction and standing in it, even when the ground still shakes beneath you. Up until now, you were undoing illusions, breaking roles, shedding borrowed identities. But a life cannot be built on negation alone. Eventually, you must say yes to something, without guarantees, applause, or proof that it will work out. This is where fear returns. A different kind of fear. Not the fear of rejection, but the fear of responsibility with no escape route. Because now, you can't blame society, you can't blame the crowd, you can't hide behind confusion. This is your life, deliberately lived. Kierkegaard called this stage existence with inward passion. It doesn't mean certainty, it doesn't mean comfort, it doesn't mean happiness in the shallow sense. It means alignment. Your actions match your inner convictions. Your silence is chosen, not imposed. Your solitude is meaningful, not empty. You stop asking, do they approve? You start asking, is this honest? And something stabilizes inside you. You no longer need to convince people. You no longer need to explain yourself constantly. You no longer need to be seen, because you're no longer hiding. This is why truly individuated people appear calm. Not because life is easy for them, but because they are no longer split against themselves. They suffer, but with coherence. They struggle, but with direction. They stand alone, but not lost. And here's the paradox Kierkegaard understood deeply. The moment you stop trying to fit in, you stop needing the crowd's permission to exist. You can walk among people without dissolving into them. You can listen without absorbing. You can love without losing yourself. That's real strength, not dominance, not loudness, not rebellion, but inner authority. This is why society doesn't celebrate people like this. They can't be controlled by trends. They can't be manipulated by fear. They can't be easily replaced. They've already paid the price most people avoid: loneliness, uncertainty, responsibility. So if you're standing at that edge right now, feeling detached, questioning everything, outgrowing people, habits, even former versions of yourself, you're not late, you're early. Most people don't wake up, they age. And the discomfort you feel isn't a warning sign, it's a threshold, a quiet confirmation that your life is no longer running on autopilot, that you were never meant to fit in, because fitting in was never the point. Becoming yourself was. And if this series helped you articulate something you felt but couldn't name, stay close. There's more to uncover, and once you start seeing clearly, there's no going back. Let that settle. If this series spoke to something inside you, the part that feels restless, out of place, or quietly questioning everything, then this isn't the end. There are more ideas, more truths, and more revelations waiting about life, society, and what it really means to stand alone. So if you want to keep exploring this path with me, quietly, deliberately, and uncover what most people will never see, consider subscribing, not because it's trendy, not because it promises comfort, but because it's a place to keep thinking deeply, without distractions, and to challenge what you've been taught. You're not here to blend in. You're here to understand, and the next step starts the moment you decide to stay. So take that step.